It is Thursday morning, and Week 7 begins tonight with the Broncos and the Saints. And for many of you, that will instead probably be like the Mets and the Dodgers. It's not going to be a great game, probably. But you know what? It is football. It is fantasy football. And we're very excited to get things going here as we welcome you to Fantasy Football today, presented by BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas. I do have some, I think, pretty easy trivia. But it's going to be for the audience, Heath, okay? It's going to be for the audience here. I'm going to see how long it takes them to get it.
Oh, okay. So you're going to ask the question. We're just going to sit here quiet while the audience guesses things on the chat.
Yeah, I just want to see, first person to get it, I'll read a question of yours on the air. Why not? Which game features a matchup of the top two quarterbacks in fantasy going head to head? Do you know? Don't say, but do you know?
Of course.
Okay. See who gets that. Top two quarterback. Also a top two wide receiver, the number one running back in fantasy. It's a marquee game for sure from a fantasy standpoint. Okay, players we love, players to avoid. Jamey should be here shortly, but Heath, why don't you kick it off? Yeah, it is Bucs Ravens. Good job, John. You win. Bucs Ravens is the game. Oh no, it was Troy. Troy got it first. Troy, congratulations.
Someone was guessing wrong. Lions, Vikings earlier. And I love the Vikings quarterback. And I love the fact that I was able to find Sam Darnold on waivers because people dropped him because he was on a bye. And so my 17 Patrick Mahomes teams, at least a few of them get to start a good quarterback in Sam Darnold at home, going up against the Lions, whose defense is a pass funnel, much better against the run than they are against the pass. Darnold has been legitimately one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL in terms of production so far this season. Really kind of fell on his face in his most recent game, but that was against the Jets, much more difficult pass matchup than the Lions are. Like his chances to be a top 5 fantasy quarterback this week, and he's available on the waiver wire in some leagues.
Yep, and I'll tell you one other player that was available on waiver wires that I picked up is Harrison Butker. I know that's not like a huge needle mover, but if you need a kicker, he might be better than the kicker you have, which reminds me, I personally am not dropping Brandon Aubrey in the one league that I have him in. He is too good, so I'm going to try to keep him through his bye. Okay, now, who do you love this week, Heath Cummings?
Didn't I just say Sam Darnold?
Oh, okay, that was your... Okay, I thought that was... I didn't know. That was the segment. Okay, who are you avoiding this week then?
Can I just stick with the exact same theme? And this was like, I get accused of being the homer all the time. I don't know why, looking at the wall behind me. But I like my projections, which generally take a longer view and try not to react too much to what's happened recently. You'll see that with the Drake May ranking of him still outside of my top 20 quarterbacks. I can't get Patrick Mahomes inside of like my top 17. There's every league where there's 2 or 3 guys on the waiver wire that I would rather start over Patrick Mahomes. I've got Aaron Rodgers ranked higher this week. I've got Darnold, of course, ranked higher. I've got Trevor Lawrence against the Patriots ranked higher. I've got Kirk Cousins ranked higher. I held Patrick Mahomes across my bye week in a couple of leagues, and there may be a couple of leagues where I just start him because there's not somebody I love on the waiver wire. I don't want to carry 2 quarterbacks. But, man, I just can't find any reason for optimism, and I wouldn't blame anybody for dropping him.
Actually played pretty damn well 2 weeks ago, but even if he had thrown that touchdown to Juju, and it hadn't been intercepted, that's like a 21-point game or something like that, which would have been a season high. And Mahomes is 100% rostered. I'm not going to criticize that necessarily, but I don't know that he needs to be 100.
If somebody needs the excuse, they're like, man, I feel like I should drop Mahomes and start Sam Darnold or one of those other guys that he said, but I just don't have. I mean, I'm giving you the excuse. It's okay. It's justified. You can drop Patrick Mahomes.
Can I give you part of the reason why I think people are holding him is our projections have him for like a top 8 quarterback this week. And I'm not criticizing our projections by any stretch because look, he's got still the always the potential. There's always the potential for 21, 22 points, which is sad to say that that's where he's at, but that's where he's being projected right now, which is better than some of the guys you listed.
Let's see. Last 2 games, 8.4 and 8.5 yards per attempt. That's without Rashee Rice. It's kind of
Well, I think that's the other thing is a lot of times you try to troll me by calling him mediocre quarterback Patrick Mahomes, and you just need to put fantasy football in that sentence because even over the last year when we've been fantasy football, it's still like if they're in the fourth quarter and they have to go 80 yards and score a touchdown, they're going to do it.
Yeah.
He's still winning Super Bowls and winning all of their games. He's still the best quarterback in the NFL. He's just an awful fantasy football quarterback.
Well, yeah, and he's had now in his last 18 games, 2 games with more than 21 fantasy points. And one of those games was against the 49ers in the Super Bowl. All right, Jamey, give me players to avoid and players to start. Start of the week and a player to avoid.
Start of the week is Kirk Cousins. Love the setup for him this week. Wow, Heath. It should be great against Seattle. They are bleeding fantasy points to the last 3 quarterbacks that they faced. Brock Purdy, Daniel Jones, Jared Goff, all over 26 fantasy points. Cousins is going to, I think, be in a shootout. It's one of the highest projected scores for the week, 50-plus points. So they just put another defensive back on IR in Rayshon Jenkins. It's a great setup for Cousins at home. I know he disappointed us last week with 15 fantasy points, whatever it was, 14-something after the 42-point game against Tampa Bay. But I think the Seahawks offense is going to show up in a big way as well. So I'm excited to see the shootout against the Seahawks and Cousins I might have him too low at 8.
Okay, Cousins. So Heath, you said, wow, Heath, we're looking at a graphic here. Heath has Cousins 15th. And I
think that goes like what Jamey said immediately after that goes so well with what I was saying about like my process and generally taking the longer view, because I don't have a spreadsheet for fantasy points allowed versus last 3 opponents, and it like that generally might be a fault because Seattle is all banged up. You look at what they've done against the pass for the season, it just looks like kind of a mediocre matchup. You look at Cousins' production, including last week, it just kind of looks like, borderline QB1. I'm looking to see if it's changed a whole lot. Now, it does look like that over-under has gone up a little bit. So I wouldn't be surprised when I do my Thursday rankings update if there's a bit of an increase in terms of his projection just because of the increase in the over-under. It's up to 51 now.
Yeah. And yeah, it is. Rayshon Jenkins has played every single snap at safety this season for the Seahawks. He is now out on IR, and we'll see what happens with their cornerbacks. Reek Woolen and one other guy, Trey Brown, I think, missed practice on Wednesday.
But like you see that 15th ranking on Kirk Cousins, and he's still one of the guys who's ranked ahead of Patrick Mahomes for me.
There you go. All right, Jamey, give me a player to sit this week.
Heath gave you Mahomes. I'll go Kyler Murray. No Marvin Harrison against a Chargers team that's been very good against basically everything that they faced for the majority of the season. I know Bo Nix had a good game against them last week, but I think that's more fluky than anything else. They've yet to allow a team to score more than 20 points. A team to score more than 20 points, not a fantasy option. A team to score more than 20 points in the 5 games that they've played. And so taking away Murray's best receiver or one of his top receiving options, and the way that he's been as a fantasy quarterback, I mean, he's been a bust. He's like 2 games over 16 fantasy points on the season. So if he had Harrison, I'd be a little bit more optimistic. But without Harrison, most likely in the concussion protocol, I would sit him.
Would you start Daniel Jones over Kyler Murray?
I'm nervous about Daniel Jones. His last 5 games at home, he's been 11 fantasy points or less, and now losing Andrew Thomas. So I'm nervous about Jones. I would actually start Drake May over Kyler Murray and Patrick Mahomes this week.
Drake May, I mean, he's getting an MRI.
Make sure Drake May's okay.
So, yeah, if he's okay, we'll start.
But he practiced in full.
He did, but then they said he was getting an MRI. So that was kind of weird. We'll see what's going on with Drake May. Sunday, Schaefer, correct me if I'm wrong. We are 9 to 10 a.m. Sunday again. And I don't know if we're going to be on HQ, but we'll definitely be on YouTube. YouTube.com/fantasyfootballtoday. 9 to 10 a.m. answering your start-sit questions. So join us there. YouTube.com/fantasyfootballtoday. Again, 9 a.m. Eastern for 1 hour, and then noon to 1 for another hour. So that will be our Sunday schedule. Let's take a little break here, and when we come back, we'll give you all the news and notes. There's so many. We have to talk about the running backs again. It's another week where we are looking at replacement running backs, perhaps. Some guys getting healthy, some guys not so much. You know what? It's really a lot of uncertainty. That's what we'll tell you about when we come back on Fantasy Football Today.
Welcome to JJ's.
I'll have a... Wait, there's no way I can get a burger?
No chance. But you can have the NFL on CBS streams live on Paramount+. Oh, hang on. There's a toy.
All right, here we
I
go.
feel like Adam says that to his kids, like when he's trying to get them to do something.
There's
Hang on, there's a toy.
No, I'm not really a big briber. You're not supposed to bribe your kids.
Wait till they get older.
You're not supposed to. You're not supposed to.
Well, there's a difference between bribing and incentives.
Yeah, no, we have like a sticker chart. We do that kind of stuff. Okay, Derek Carr is making progress. He is apparently closer to day than week to week. He's not going to play today, but he might come back sooner rather than later. They are at the Chargers next week, so that's again a bad matchup on paper. I'll say this about the Chargers: they've seen the second fewest plays per game defensively. So I can't quite figure out if they really have a good defense. I haven't looked at time of possession. I'm guessing they're just running the ball so much, keeping teams off the field, but they have not been a good matchup. All right,
that's exactly what Harbaugh said, and everybody jumped down his throat when they said, he's like, why do we take a receiver instead of an offensive lineman when he was asked pre-draft? That wasn't exactly the way he framed it, but he was kind of vague about, you have a need for a receiver, and you're going to be staring at one of the top 3 receivers. He's like, offensive line is pretty important. So,
it is, yeah. I mean,
they're sticking to their formula.
It's not like Malik Neighbors would have been good for them. No, but they are doing what they do. Drake May did have an MRI on his knee. Pittsburgh still hasn't decided on a quarterback. Russell Wilson took some first-team reps. We'll see. Okay, running back. Here's the big one. The big category. Ramondre Stevenson missed practice. They got the London game at Jacksonville. Aaron Jones didn't practice. He's hoping to practice today. Jordan Mason was limited. Devin Singletary was limited. Devon Achane looks like he's good to go. Brian Robinson returned to practice.
Love that.
Yeah, against Carolina.
Oh my God, and he said we should probably rank him. Heath. He said if it was up to him, he would have played last week, and he's ready to go. And it seemed like the one story I read was Jane Daniels was like, yeah, it's good to have B-Rob back, and one of the offensive linemen was like, yeah, we're so happy he's back there. So he's got top 10 upside.
Brian Robinson.
Yeah.
Nick Chubb. You guys ranking him yet?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So he and Nyheim Hines, another guy, were good for him getting back.
What year is this?
Yeah, I know. I practiced in full. Jerome Ford missed practice. Jonathan Brooks is back at practice. It's going to be maybe a full 3 weeks before we see him. Zamir White was limited. Travis Etienne was limited. Gross.
How crazy is this that we keep getting these reports? Michael Pittman last week. Somebody else was also.
We were just talking about this before the show. It is multiple guys of like he's going to play on Monday and then is inactive, and then guys that are like crushing injuries and then they just play the next week.
Yeah, and Drake May going for an MRI but not on the injury report.
Yeah, and he was on the injury report, but he was listed as full. And then you had obviously James Cook last week, which was crazy. Trey Sermon and Jonathan Taylor missed practice. Tyler Goodson is someone that I've picked up because if he's the starting running back against the Dolphins, that could be very good.
Can I tell you something that I fell asleep last night? Usually I make my waiver moves like around 11 o'clock on Wednesday.
Uh-huh.
And I fell asleep, but I woke up at 4. And I went and looked, and I was like, damn it, Adam took Tyler Goodson in every stinking league.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, I think he could be the lead running back even if Sermon plays, not if Taylor plays, obviously.
You had a great comp the other day about the Houston situation.
Yeah, he's right. He's Daria Gumbawale now. I just think Trey Sermon's bad. Najee Harris missed practice with injured ribs, and James Cook was limited. So
I think we're going to find out another one today, too. Connor. Keep an eye on that one.
Yeah. Okay, so, by the way, I stayed up super late last night working, but also watching that movie. What was it called? Terrifier, with that creepy killer clown. Absolutely bizarre movie. But anyway, for you horror movie fans. All right, so if we look at running back here, who do we need to be adding right now with all these injuries? Is there anyone to get, or are they all gone at this point?
So, as someone who went through 2 days worth of waivers in 30 leagues, I see still a lot of Isaac Orendo out there. So he's someone to keep an eye on just in case. I know Mason was, did you mention Mason that he was limited?
Yeah, he was limited. Yeah.
So that's one to keep an eye on. You mentioned Goodson. He's still available in about 60% of leagues. I picked up a few shares of Trey Benson just because I do think we're going to get some negative news, not necessarily bad news, but negative news on James Conner that he may be limited or not practicing on Thursday. Remember, this is their first practice day. Guys who are available. Sean Tucker is still available in a lot of leagues. And, that's one to definitely keep an eye on because of Rachaad White's injury. their first practice day is today as well. Now, we do our show on Wednesday on CBS Sports Network with Robert Turbin, former NFL running back, and I said this a few times. He's going to become my new Prisco. He's done a very good job of, for example, singling out. Not that this was a huge stretch, but we were clearly all over the place from our perspective of how we felt about Barkley as a show, how we felt about Henry as a show, and he was all in on those two guys being great. There's a couple other examples, as Heath might remember, of him being all over running backs. He thinks that Tucker is going to be the best running back for the Bucs moving forward.
Wow.
I mean, he looks so good. But a couple other guys besides Tucker, Ty Chandler, and these are the guys you're not excited about, but they're still available in more than 30% of leagues. Like Ty Chandler's 63% rostered. Antonio Gibson's 69%. Ramondre wasn't at practice. Jamey said Garindo, he's 51% available. In terms of stashes, Kamani Vidal is not really being added. He's rostered in 34% of the league. Tucker's only 30% rostered. There's still a lot of running backs to add.
Okay.
Tyler Goodson's 12% rostered.
Yeah, baby. I'm like all of that 12.
Adam.
Well, there's the thing, because all these replacement running backs, we talked about it on Tuesday's show, many of them have really bad matchups, like Garindo and
Ray Davis
and Chandler and Ray Davis. So I mean, like if every starter were out, I think Goodson, well, Sermon would have to be out too. Goodson would have I'd start him over Garindo, for example. In fact, I think I dropped him. I dropped Garindo.
I think that's an easy call. Yeah, if you say that they're both starting, yeah, I would agree with you 100%. And there's a probably pretty strong chance that he may be starting, because I'm pretty sure they added a running back to their practice squad.
The Colts?
Yeah.
Oh,
but also Trey Sermon didn't practice last Wednesday either.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, now to be fair, we gotta continue to, if we're gonna say Robert's takes. Robert did say that he feels Sermon is still the guy while Taylor's out. Now that may not, that I don't think was factoring in injury. I think just if everybody's healthy.
All right, let's go to the wide receivers. Rashid Shaheed, he could need season-ending surgery. He's having surgery on his knee, meniscus surgery. We'll see how long it is. Might go on IR. I think you could drop Shaheed. What do you think?
I mean, clearly he's droppable if he's going to have season-ending surgery. That's obvious.
Well, yeah.
I would imagine if he goes on IR, that's a bad sign that he's going to come back in 4 weeks. So it's probably going to be more than that, even though that will be the designation. It just depends on what your roster looks like. He's definitely in the drop category. And look, if you want to get ahead of it, you drop him now. Nobody could pick him up anyway.
Right.
And then you find out what's happening moving forward.
Cooper Kupp trending in the right direction, has a chance to play this week, and Jordan Whittington was limited. Malik Neighbors also trending in the right direction. Looks like he'll play. Jacoby Myers missed practice. Dontavian Wicks practice. That's another guy we thought week to week, and he practiced yesterday. DJ Chark has been designated to return from IR by the Chargers, so he can come back in the next 3 weeks. Deontay Johnson missed practice. He usually misses Wednesday practice. Amari Cooper, no decision yet on whether he'll play this week. Khalil Shakir practiced in full. Khalil Shakir did not play a full snap share at the Jets in week 6. They get Tennessee this week. And Josh Downs and Michael Pittman, again, missed practice on Wednesday, as they did that last week too. Tight end, TJ Hawkins.
Downs did practice.
He did?
I did not see him with an injury designation.
Okay. I'll double check on that. TJ Hawkinson was limited. Taysom Hill, doubtful for tonight. Dallas Goedert missed practice, but has a chance to play. Offensive line news. Giants left tackle Andrew Thomas is out for the season. 2 Raiders offensive linemen missed practice. They're at the Rams. And Philadelphia left tackle Jordan Mailata missed practice. He was designated week to week. Defensively, I won't
be starting with no issues.
Yeah, exactly. I won't go through everything defensively. The Jets, though, they're at Pittsburgh Sunday night, and they could be missing 3 starters in their secondary. They will be missing Chuck Clark, safety. But DJ Reed and Michael Carter, they missed practice. And I wonder if DJ Reed is out, would they move Sauce Gardner around to shadow George Pickens? Kind of interesting. That would be an interesting decision to make.
It does look like both Downs and Pittman were DNPs yesterday.
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah, what's up? Minnesota linebacker Blake Cashman expected to miss this week, and Harrison Phillips, defensive tackle, missed practice. That's never good coming out of a bye. But Houston is one defense that's banged up. They're at Green Bay. Arizona is banged up. They didn't practice yesterday, or they didn't release a report because they played Monday, but we'll wait to see on them. L'Jarius Sneed mispracticed with a quad injury. So if Cooper plays and Sneed doesn't, that would be big news. Patrick Surtain's out tonight. Giants, their two best defensive players mispracticed yesterday. They're being labeled as day-to-day, Brian Burns and Dexter Lawrence. We'll see on that. I don't think they're going to miss the game, but we'll see. Javon Holland, this is another guy. Javon Holland, I thought was going to go on IR. He practiced yesterday. He was limited. He might play with like a cast on his hand. Safety for the Dolphins. Seahawks secondaries beat up. Atlanta safety Justin Simmons mispractice. San Francisco looks like they're getting their cornerback Charvarius Ward back, and same thing with Darius Slay and the Eagles. He was limited in practice. Okay, if you haven't signed,
real quick before you move on, just because you brought it up, I wonder if with the coaching change, if they will allow Sauce Gardner to travel, because that's it's not just an injury situation; it's also could be a schematic thing, because Saleh did not want to do that, even though this is the defense coordinator.
Yeah, he traveled like a little bit against Cortland Sutton, but for the most part, he stays put. But no DJ Reed, new coach, could happen. And obviously, we wouldn't want that for George Pickens. And I have some interesting stats on George Pickens, by the way. I'll tell you right now, those interesting stats on George Pickens after I tell you about BetMGM. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, let's do it. Use that bonus code FANTASY, and you'll get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. That's a great offer. Here's how it works. Download the BetMGM app. No, don't download the BMGM app. Download the BetMGM app. Sign up and use that bonus code FANTASY. All you got to do is deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you'll receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure you use the bonus code FANTASY when you sign up on BetMGM. Okay, here's what I want to tell you about George Pickens. He has 32.3% of Pittsburgh's receiving yards, but they're 27th in gross passing yards per game. If you think Russell Wilson is going to change that, that they're going to throw for more than 187.5 yards per game, and Pickens can maintain this target dominance, I don't know if he'll have a third of their receiving yards. That would be great. Also, he has 5 drops this year, and 2 of them are in the end zone. Just think about how differently you might be valuing George Pickens if he had caught both of those balls. I know they're drops. Maybe depends how you feel about drops. Is that a sign that he's not that good? Maybe. Is it a sign that he's been a little unlucky? Maybe. It's how you put it that way, but you can decide that. But a third of their receiving yards, 2 end zone drops, 5 drops overall, some meat on the bone for George.
I talked about this on the network yesterday with Jamey. Like, it's impossible if you do projections to move from Justin Fields to Russell Wilson without having an increase in the team's passing yards, even if you thought that they were the same as passers, which I don't think anybody really does. Like, Russell's at least a little bit better than George Pickens just at throwing the ball. But also, Fields ranks top 5 in scramble attempts and designed QB runs. And that's not going to be the same way with Russell Wilson. So the pass attempts are going to go up. And I think that it's more likely that the targets are worth more than they were before. I need to probably lower Pickens a little bit, but just on changing the numbers for the quarterbacks, he moved into my top 16 this week.
And Fields, I don't know if you meant, he has 5 or 6 rushing touchdowns. So those are opportunities near the end zone that don't go to the receivers. All right, one question for each game. Kansas City at San Francisco. Are you trying to get away from 49ers players this week? Or are you like, how do you feel about starting the 49ers this week against this defense?
So if Mason is active, he's definitely a top 24 running back. He's probably not a top 10 guy, but you're definitely starting him still, unless you're just completely loaded at the position. I would say the same thing about Debo and the same thing about Kittle. It's just what they have done and still should be able to do. Debo gets a little bit of a downgrade if Mason plays, but still a starter. Ayuk for me is a sit. Starter in 3 receiver leagues. But you look at just how he's played this season and his production. He's got 2 games with more than, I think it's 5 targets. He's got 1 good game on the season. This is a team that is 7th in terms of fewest fantasy points allowed to receivers for the year. We know they do a good job of taking away an opponent's number 1 receiver. So I think that's still Ayuk from a receiving standpoint, just because of how Debo moves around. So for me, I'm just completely out on Ayuk in a 2 receiver league. And I would still start the other 3 guys just based on still their potential and upside and touches.
All right, New England's at Jacksonville. This game is in London. Heath, who's the best running back in this game? And
we literally have no idea which running backs are playing. This is an impossible, like Ramondre Stevenson if he plays. is
So
the best running
let's
back.
say Stevenson plays and ETN is out. Would you go Bigsby or Stevenson?
Stevenson plays. I would probably still go Gibson over Bigsby. And I know Gibson was awful last week. So was Bigsby.
Wait. I'm sorry. Stevenson plays.
Oh, then definitely Stevenson over Bigsby.
Okay. So Stevenson's out and ETN.
I'm going with
is out.
Patriots starting running back is probably the best.
That was a hell of a sequence. Who's the best running back of this game? Heath. Stevenson, if he's healthy. Adam. Stevenson plays. And
No, he
Bigsby's
didn't
out.
say that. He did not say that. Check.
I did 100% say that. You just weren't listening to me.
No,
Which is
you
pretty
didn't.
reasonable. It's
You
fine.
didn't say Stevenson if he's
Patriots running back is my favorite running back in this game.
okay. Fine. All right, but the Jaguars running back has a great matchup too. ETN would really complicate things.
I would actually go Bigsby over Gibson if everybody's out, but it's just slightly better.
But you'd go Stevenson over Bigsby.
Stevenson would be, so everybody's healthy. It would be Stevenson, ETN, Bigsby, Gibson. Stevenson's out. It would be ETN, Gibson, Bigsby, nobody else. ETN and Stevenson are out. It would be Bigsby, Gibson, Dearness Johnson.
And Heath would go Gibson over Bigsby.
Yes, and they're both very close. So I have no problem if you want to go Gibson at Bigsby.
All right, Miami's in Indianapolis. Starter sit Tyreek Hill.
Low end number 2 receiver.
He's a number 2.
Cincinnati's at Cleveland. Who's the best running back in this game?
Chase Brown.
Yeah.
Zach Moss or Nick Chubb?
Nick Chubb.
Chubb.
Nick Chubb is 100% scoring in this game.
Yeah, first of all, Cincinnati, last week was the first week where they had 3 defensive linemen all playing together. BJ Hill, Chris Jenkins, and Sheldon Rankins. And they were great against the Giants. So we'll see. But Nick Chubb against all these replacement running backs is going to be really interesting. And honestly, I'm just going to save it for tomorrow. I'm just going to save it for tomorrow because
I probably not. Probably ought to just save it for Sunday morning.
all right, the mailbag on Friday, actually, because we're doing it at 2:30 p.m. We'll know a lot more injury stuff. But Nick Chubb or Javonte Williams tonight?
Got to play Javonte.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that goes for like all of the injury replacement running backs for me. You got to play Javonte.
Tennessee's at Buffalo. Would you start a Bills running back in this game?
If James Cook plays it, I feel the same way about James Cook I do about Jordan Mason. If he plays, I'm not sitting him. I'm just not ranking him as high as I normally would and not having the same expectations. If James Cook is out, then I would try to avoid Ray Davis if you can, but you might be stuck.
Is this a 1:00 game?
Yeah. Yes.
So I think I would definitely start Javonte over a Bills running back tonight, but I'm probably starting the Bills starter, whoever it is.
Jets are at the Steelers. Starter sit George Pickens.
Starter in 3 receiver leagues.
I'm starting him if Russ starts, and he's a low end number 3 if Field starts.
Baltimore at Tampa Bay. I know this is a big bonanza kind of game, but it's going to be one of the last games we preview because it's kind of, I think, an easy.
I thought we banned that word.
No, I think I'm fine. I'm very confident in a bonanza here. Can you trust the Bucs running back though against this ridiculously good run defense?
No, because you can't trust which Bucs running back is going to touch the ball.
Correct. I think they're both flexes. If 2 of them are playing, which means White is out. If all 3 are playing, it's an absolute auto avoid.
Yeah. Okay. Chargers at Cardinals Monday night. James Conner or J.K. Dobbins?
Dobbins.
Dobbins, I think, is top 12 for you guys. So
I almost said him in the players I love.
oh, there you go. But you said Sam Darnold and the players you love. I was listening.
Yeah, you weren't.
Kansas City's at San Francisco is our first game. Let's get into it. The Ravens.
I love J.K. Dobbins. Do you like Dobbins better or Connor better?
The Chiefs defense has been so good. They held the Ravens to 20 points, the Bengals to 25, the Falcons to 17, the Chargers to 10, and the Saints to 13th. All right, let's see. So we know that the Chiefs run defense, arguably the best in football. They've been great. How about the stat of the game, though? Lead running back yards per carry against the 49ers. Breece Hall, 3.4. Aaron Jones, 3.6. Kyron Williams, 3.7. Ramondre Stevenson, 3.3. James Conner, 4.5. So that was like, oh, maybe they're not so good without Javon Hargrave is out for the year. And then Ken Walker, 2.3 last week. So I wonder without Hargrave if they really are that great, but they have been great. And Kareem Hunt's longest run on 41 carries is 10 yards. So how do we feel about Kareem Hunt this week?
Low end number 2 running back.
Yeah, I would put him maybe just outside of the top 24, depending on which running backs play. But he is currently somewhere in that 20 to 28 range at running back. I think I got him 25 maybe right now. It'd be really interesting to see what type of coming off the bye, if Clyde's activated,
He is activated.
Yeah,
65. I thought he was designated to return, but okay. Is it 65% of the snap share, which I think it was last time for Kareem Hunt, or is the labor more evenly divided?
Yeah. Well, he's not going to play on passing downs, but does he get basically all of the carries? And Clyde, you can't put Clyde on an IR spot anymore. He's off. He's activated, but he could be inactive for the game.
Correct.
But he's activated.
I think the thing you got to, for me, Hunt falls into what we were talking about with James Cook and Jordan Mason and some of these guys that just are going to get a lot of work and are on good offenses, but tough matchup, and hopefully have better options.
All right, so Mahomes is a sit. Kareem Hunt, hopefully you have better options. If he gets 27 carries, he'll be fine, but that's what he had last time out. And then there's Juju and Xavier Worthy. Part of me wonders, are they going to take this bye week to get Xavier Worthy a little bit more active? He had 6 targets last week. I believe that was a career high. But Juju's 58% rostered.
That's still crazy to me.
That's so crazy.
People aren't buying it, and I get it. I mean, I sort of get it. Maybe we are a little bit too excited here, but would you start Juju over Kareem Hunt?
Yes.
Full PPR, I probably would. Everything else, I would start Hunt.
Would you start Xavier Worthy over Kareem Hunt?
No.
Would you start Juju over Brandon Ayuk?
Yes.
I would not.
Well, that's pretty bold, Jamey. That's pretty bold. All right, start Kelsey. Start or sit Brock Purdy?
Better than Mahomes, but not a must-start guy for me.
Yeah, I think he's 11th for me. I'm probably starting him.
Okay, Goff.
Purdy.
Over Darnold or Purdy?
Darnold.
So you would start Purdy over Cousins?
I do have Purdy over Cousins, yes.
Interesting.
Okay. San Francisco running backs we've talked about. So Mason, where do you think you'd have him ranked?
15?
Around 20th.
Garendo.
Right now, I think he's like 30.
29th.
Okay. What a shame.
Better in non-PPR.
Yes.
Chiefs allow the fewest fantasy points to running backs, 3.1 yards per carry to running backs. And they even, going back to the Super Bowl, held Christian McCaffrey to 3.6 yards per carry or worse. I don't know exactly what it was. He did have a huge game because he had a big receiving game, but that's not what Mason and Garendo are going to do. And then, all right, so Deebo Samuel, expecting Devontae Adams to play. Would you start Deebo Samuel? How many Jets receivers would, rank him with the Jets receivers, Deebo?
If no Mason, Deebo is ahead of both. If Mason, I probably would go Adams, Deebo, Wilson.
Full PPR, I would go Adams, Wilson, Deebo. Half or non, I would go Adams, Deebo, Wilson.
By the way, Brandon Ayuk is basically on pace for the same amount of targets that he had last year.
Right. I think he's been kind of unlucky.
Yeah. 4 yards per target fewer, basically. And I was saying on Beyond the Box Score, if you go back and watch Deebo's 76-yard touchdown last week, Brandon Ayuk drew triple coverage in the middle of the field. He's running these deep routes in the middle of the field. He's drawing double teams so often. He's freeing other guys up. And there's no threat of McCaffrey coming out of the backfield. It's kind of an interesting dynamic right now. And then Deebo, I still have concerns with Deebo. I know you're expecting some in the rushing game, but for Purdy, he's throwing the ball downfield so much. It's not Deebo's game. And what does he have? 3 straight games with 5 targets or something?
5-3-5.
Yeah, that's terrible.
It has, yeah. It's just one. If he hadn't had that, but he had the one we played. But if he hadn't, my PPR projections, I think I got him 28th. But I've ranked him higher than that just because he does have the ability to make those plays, and he might get more in the running game.
I mean, even if the safety just tackles him, if you just give him the catch and not all the yak after that,
Yeah.
I wonder how people are feeling about Deebo Samuel.
He's the only one that has yak on the season.
Yeah, well, they throw now that Anthony Richardson's no longer passer rating qualified, Brock Purdy is now your leader in air yards per pass attempt. Never thought we'd say that about a 49ers quarterback. All right, anyone else that I'm missing in this game?
I want to go back to the Juju thing and you said maybe we're too high. John said in the chats it was 1.5 games with Juju, and it's the Chiefs. You guys are just a little too excited about him. I've got him ranked as a number 3 wide receiver. There's a difference between he's a must-start player and he's a roster player. What we're saying is there's no way he should be available in 40% of leagues. Not that you might not have 2 or 3 better wide receivers to start this week. I don't think he's going to score 20 fantasy points every game like he did last game, but he should not be available on the waiver wire.
And also, if you go into any week with the potential of a receiver getting 7+ targets,
yeah,
and the quarterback that they're getting those targets from, you said it best, Heath. We could sit here and say Patrick Mahomes is not a good fantasy quarterback because he's not getting the type of numbers that we like to get. He still is going to elevate his receivers to a level that they should perform better than most quarterbacks elevate their other receivers. So if Juju's going to get those opportunities now, which it seems like he will, even in a tough matchup, I'm still going to consider him. Like I'm more optimistic than you are. I consider him a number 2 receiver this week.
Yeah, you got him, I think, 21st in PPR. All right, start a DST in this game?
No.
Okay, let's move on. We'll go to Tennessee and Buffalo, but first we're going to move on to a commercial break. We'll be right back after this on Fantasy Football Today.
Football action continues. Are you ready for this? Ready to take chances? As the gridiron is taken over by the Great White North. It's time to storm the fortress. It's time to fight on the battlefield. Catch the Canadian Football League on CBS Sports Network.
Uh-oh, what's this sound? It's the squeaky wheel or the crickets. It's the squeaky crickets. It's Calvin Ridley. Tennessee is at Buffalo. This is usually a spot, Jamey, that you love. You love the guy who's complaining, get me more involved. The coach says we're going to get him more involved. No catches on 8 targets last week, 1 carry for 9 yards. What do you think about the squeaky crickets this week for Ridley?
Yeah, it's usually a situation where the guy had minimal targets the game before. He just had 8. I mean, what are they going to do? Give him 15 targets from Will Levis? Okay, so he'll have 4 catches as opposed to none. Like it's just not trustworthy right now. So I don't want to start Calvin Ridley. I don't want to roster Calvin Ridley if I don't have to. It's just bad news right now. You know, Bill's secondary I know has been sort of a little up and down. I still trust them in this type of matchup. At this point, maybe Mason Rudolph's got to play, to help Calvin Ridley, just based on what Rudolph did for George Pickens last year in Pittsburgh. Levis just not getting the job done. Who knows if his shoulder's right? They're trying to defend him at this point in Tennessee. The coaching staff is, at least. He's awful. He's had just a miserable season. And so based on that, the matchup, I think they'll be able to run the ball against Buffalo. So it's going to be a big game for Tony Pollard. Why would you even consider Calvin Ridley until you see some first?
I certainly don't want to start him. He's not a top 48 wide receiver for me. He's still my second favorite wide receiver in this game, and I don't want to drop him.
Now, who's that ahead of? Are you banking on Cooper playing?
Yes.
Okay.
And if Cooper didn't play, then he'd be my second favorite in this game behind Khalil Shakir.
And okay, fair enough. And I'll say this. Going into the year, remember, we said that the per route data was better for Hopkins last year than it was for Ridley. Well, right now, among 78 wide receivers with 20 or more targets, 78 of them, DeAndre Hopkins is 21st in yards per route run. Calvin Ridley is 74th. So Hopkins played more snaps last week. He's still not a full snap share guy, but he was closer. Might just be the better guy. Not that it necessarily matters.
He can't run anymore, though. He looks so slow.
All right, so Will Levis sit. Tony Pollard is an absolute must start. You guys have him in your top 10. Great matchup. Bills give up the second most fantasy points to running backs. Although, did Tajay Spears practice yesterday?
No.
He missed practice? Okay, finally a guy that was week to week that missed practice. It's Josh Allen. Just who would you start over Josh Allen this week?
Daniels, Lamar.
Baker, Jalen.
Okay. Start Josh Allen.
Darnold's the one I'm really struggling with, but I've got Allen at just one spot ahead of Darnold right now.
And then the Buffalo running backs. We'll get back to that in a minute, but because we talked about it earlier, let's talk about the passing game a little bit more. And Heath, you want to talk? So Cooper, how much do you like him if he plays? Shakir, how much do you like him if Cooper doesn't play?
Cooper's in the wide receiver 3 range for me if he plays. Shakir would be probably a little bit lower than that if Cooper is out. This is a terrible matchup. But I think like Amari Cooper is going to be pretty thrilled to have passes that are within his general vicinity. Probably do something with it. Like low end number 3.
You know, I got to go back and look at this. He's definitely second time he's been traded midseason, right? Third?
Yeah, it's the second.
What he did in his first game following trade.
I don't know. He had a good season. I mean, he had a good like half season with the Cowboys. I'll go for you right now.
I'm looking.
Okay.
Did he? Does he get the 8.8 targets that he averaged in Cleveland?
Oh, probably not. Not in week 1. And
Not in week 1, but
His first game with the Cowboys, 5 catches, 58 yards, and a touchdown on 8 targets.
hey, cool.
I can see that. Now, you mentioned something earlier, Adam, with the news and notes. If Snead is out, you're starting Amari Cooper.
Okay. You have him ranked similarly to Heath, so I think you guys
He's high in number 3.
same page there. And then Dalton Kincaid, listen, the advanced metrics on Dalton Kincaid are really interesting. So the Bills have run, I think, the fewest plays per game in football, or the second fewest plays per game, something like that. And for Dalton Kincaid, it's such a shame because he's doing some good things. 22 tight ends have had 20 or more targets. Dalton Kincaid ranks 17th in routes run. So he's just they're not running enough plays. He's not running enough routes, but he's 6th in targets. He's 4th in target per route run rate. He's 6th in yards per route run. He's 10th in yards per catch. He's 10th in ADOT, and he's 2nd in yak per catch. Pretty good profile for Kincaid, but now you got Cooper coming in, and you guys have him about 9th. I think you both have him 9th.
He's actually going to drop for me. And it does depend on Cooper playing. So if Cooper's out, then he'll probably stay here. But if Cooper plays, Titans is a little bit misleading. They are number 1 in fewest fantasy points allowed to the position. Now, they got Komet and Caleb Williams' first game. They got Tucker Kraft with Malik Willis. They got Jonnu Smith with Tyler Huntley. So they've shut down basically every tight end they faced. No tight end's got more than 4 PPR points against them. So you got Kincaid here, who has had 2 good games on the season. And so in a little bit of a tough matchup, if there's going to be a target crunch, and he's also with a collarbone injury. So not a slam dunk. I think 100% usual set it and forget it tight end.
It is like most of those stats that you were talking about are more useful than like per target stats. I understand that, but his per target stats are still awful.
Oh yeah,
like yards per target 7. He's not turning targets into fantasy points. It's just like,
well, 1 touchdown. Yeah, only 1 touchdown.
There's just not very many routes.
Yeah.
And it's not just because they're so slow. It's also because they're not throwing.
Yeah, true. Yep. They have the 2nd lowest pass rate in football, I think we said yesterday. So, all right. So, revisiting the running back situation, I don't want to, excuse me. I don't want to do this necessarily. This is how the show gets to be an hour and 20 minutes. You guys already talked about this, but if James Cook plays, he would be where in your rankings?
Somewhere between 18 and 24.
I was going to say 10 to 15.
And yeah, that's pretty low. Jamey, are you thinking, I know it's a tough matchup, but are you also thinking he'd share more than he had been?
He's not 100%. I would imagine Ray Davis has earned a little bit of a bigger role. Why wouldn't he? I like Heath's phrase yesterday. Why would you put that back in the bag? And tough matchup.
Yeah. Okay. And then if he's out, Ray Davis is where?
Ray Davis is like 26 for me.
Right now, I have him ranked similarly because he's behind Javonte. But if James Cook was ruled out, he would move into the top 20.
So I would say Davis, if we're talking 49ers running back not named Jordan Mason, Ty Chandler, and I think that's the
Garando.
Huh?
Garando?
I said 49ers running back not named Mason.
Oh, sorry.
And Ty Chandler.
And Ty Chandler.
Wait, no, there was one other though. Who was
Goodson. Goodson, Sermon.
No.
If Goodson is the starter, I would take Goodson over Ray Davis this week.
Who were the big 4 that we talked about that all
What
had?
about
It was
Tracy
the Bucks. They had a bad match.
The Bucks.
Yeah, but the Bucks is, I think, easier to
Get away.
I would start Davis over the Bucks guys because of the split.
All right. Well, that brings us to New England at Jacksonville. Your updated stat of the game. The Patriots have allowed 80 rushing yards or a touchdown to 9 running backs in 6 games. And this is a great matchup for the running backs. But I think today I'm going to kind of not avoid the running back talk. Look, we're previewing the games, but we'll get into it more later in the week. But just know good opportunities for the running backs in this game, whoever they may be. Okay, so how would you feel about Drake May if he plays? Is he the best quarterback in this game if he plays?
I would start Lawrence over him.
Right now I have May over Lawrence, but they're back-to-back.
Okay.
They're both QB2s.
Yes.
Better than Mahomes.
Yes.
I would start Lawrence, Mahomes, May.
Okay. Demario Douglas or Christian Kirk?
Douglas.
That is a very good question. I have Kirk a couple spots higher.
Would you like to hear a Christian Kirk breakdown statistically?
Yeah.
Okay, let's do it. The target per route run rate is basically the same as it was in each of the previous 2 seasons for Christian Kirk. In those 2 seasons, he was on pace for about 85 catches, more than 1,100 yards on 130 to 133 targets. But he's getting a lot fewer targets. He's on pace for only 110 targets this season. Trevor Lawrence is averaging 3.5 fewer pass attempts per game in 2024 compared to 2023. Lawrence is also throwing downfield a lot more, and Christian Kirk has a career-high ADOT of 13.1 yards. It was about 9 yards the previous 2 seasons. Brian Thomas Jr. is getting about the same amount of targets that Calvin Ridley was getting, so I don't know if that's the issue, but Kirk has played fewer snaps, is seeing fewer pass attempts, has a higher ADOT, and worse efficiency. Not a great profile for Christian Kirk. Okay, there we go. How do you feel about Brian Thomas Jr.? Bounce back this week?
Number 2 wide receiver.
Yeah, tough matchup. He's going to probably see Gonzalez, so just keep that in mind. But it's just so much upside for him. So, yes, I do think there's bounce back potential.
Let's give Trevor Lawrence some credit here. 3 straight games with 2 touchdown passes, 3 straight games with, decent games, 18.8 or more fantasy points, 6 point per passing touchdown leagues. He's actually had a very tough schedule this year.
Does it matter that they've been in London for 10 days and New England's just getting there?
They did this last year. So I actually remember talking about this last year, if this was going to be an advantage for them. And let me see. Sorry. Wait, Jamey, you can answer that while I look up the...
Well, first off, it's New England, so I can't imagine that that's an issue.
Fine. Yeah, it's barely even a long flight.
Well, that is interesting, though, because, is this any different than New England going to Seattle?
They beat the Bills 25-20 last year in their second straight game in London. They went 2-0 in London last year. They beat the Bills 25-20.
This game will be somewhat telling how the team feels about Doug Peterson. Because if they get behind, do they give up? Because this is the fire game. If he loses this game, you don't want to fire him going into London and staying in London for 2 weeks. This is the game where he gets fired if they lose.
If Drake May plays, would you start Demario Douglas or Juju Smith-Schuster?
Juju.
Would you start Demario? Well, this one's for Jamey because he has Juju ahead of
It is 10 minutes shorter to fly to Seattle than it is to fly.
Demario Douglas or Brandon Ayuk, Jamey?
Ayuk.
Do you think you'll have Demario Douglas ahead of a lot of the replacement running backs?
In PPR, I would start him ahead of the 49ers, not named Mason.
Yep.
Chandler. And I would start him ahead of Davis.
I would start him ahead of the Bucks.
And ahead of the Bucks.
All right, how do we feel about the tight ends in this game, Ingram and Henry?
Very good. I mean, Ingram coming off the game that he just had, and the Patriots, I believe it's either 3 or 4 tight ends have been over 11 PPR points against them this season. Obviously, Henry's looking at a great matchup. I mean, based on what Cole Kmet just did and the fact that he got, better quality of targets from Drake May. So clearly Ingram's in a different category than Henry is. But Henry, I think, is in that, Zach Ertz, Cade Otton. I'd start him over Freiermuth, for example.
Mark Andrews?
I would start him over Andrews, yeah.
That's what I was just going to say, is that Henry's still in that group of tight ends that I'm faking Mark Andrews and Sam Laporta over. because they both do project behind Henry, but I've moved Andrews and Laporta ahead of them in the rankings. Ingram's a must start. And I wouldn't blame somebody if they wanted to start Henry over, like the data suggests you should start Hunter Henry over both Mark Andrews and Sam Laporta.
Okay. Anything we're missing from this game? All right. So yeah, to sum it up, how high, what is the highest ranking that a running back in this game could have in what scenario?
ETN and Stevenson out, and Bigsby and Gibson are both somewhere between 15 and 20.
I would say Ramondre plays and he's between 15 and 20.
Okay. So, yeah, I have Bigsby in a lot of leagues, and I'll probably start him if ETN is out. Miami's at Indianapolis. Okay. Oh, just real quick, I'm sorry. Any interest in the Patriots or Jaguars DST?
If you're desperate, but I don't think this is, bad offense. You use bad defense. Like, these are just bad defenses.
Yeah, I think the defenses are too bad.
All right, Miami's at Indianapolis. The Dolphins allow the fewest fantasy points to quarterbacks, third fewest fantasy points to wide receivers, the fewest receiving yards per game to running backs. Why? Well, one of the reasons is they've seen the second fewest pass attempts in the NFL. But they also have the highest pressure rate, according to True Media. Pressure rate's an interesting stat. True Media has the Dolphins number 1. Pro Football Reference has them 14th. And the Dolphins have only 9 sacks in 5 games. So do they have a good pass rush? I honestly don't know.
No, they might be down Agba too. So
I don't know if any of that matters for Anthony Richardson. But
the thing about the Dolphins, you said it, like pressure rate, I'm guessing is how many times they, quarterback is seeing pressure. They're getting run all over the place.
Yeah, but it's per drop back. So it's right.
So,
and right. So there's not that much pressure.
Right.
The rate is good. There's not a ton of pressures because they don't see the second fewest pass attempts, but they do get run over all the time. All right, how do you see it? First of all, stat of the game is just really important. Tyler Huntley more than doubled his passing yards from weeks 4 to 5. If he does that again, he will approach 400 passing yards against the Colts. So that is your stat of the game. So with that said, Jamey, how do you see this game playing out? We've got some bad defense here potentially, but we also have some bad offense potentially. How do you see Dolphins Colts looking?
So it's a shame that Jonathan Taylor is most likely going to miss this game because the Dolphins' run defense is abysmal. And so you would love to have Taylor out there, which is why we're saying I would say don't drop Trey Sermon yet and go pick up Tyler Goodson. And I know that sounds weird to say both in the same sentence, but if Sermon plays, he should still get the majority of carries. But he's banged up right now. So we could be looking at Tyler Goodson in one of the best fill-in spots that we've had all year. The other side of the ball, it's still tough to say you're starting Tyreek Hill with the usual confidence. I think he's still a number 2 receiver. And Jalen Waddle, I still want to bench if I can, but better opportunity for him this week because the Colts are so bad. You have Devon Achane practicing in full. He's a must-start running back if he's out there. And I think Raheem Mostert's a must-start running back as well, just because they're probably going to go back to what was working for them last season when everybody was still healthy, was just using both those running backs to whatever degree that they can. And so I could see 15-plus touches for both those guys against the Colts. That's a start for me.
How do you see it, Heath? Who's a must-start in this game?
Must start. Oof. I think like Tyreek and Achane probably are. I can't see myself getting away from either one of those guys. I'm a little bit less optimistic on Mostert, though if he can break one long run or score a touchdown, he's probably going to be a start. I think Downs is a number 3 wide receiver. Waddle is a number 3 wide receiver. Pittman is a flex or number 3 wide receiver. And then the Colts starting running back is a high-end flex. Unless it's Taylor, and then he'd be a must start.
Right.
I would start Richardson this week too, just because he should be healthy. And I don't know if you have it in front of you, Adam. I think he had 24 rushing yards in the first quarter against Pittsburgh.
He had like 70. He had 71. 71 passing yards, 3 of 4 for 71 yards and 24 rushing yards. He may have been on his way to a pretty good game against the Steelers in week 4.
So that felt like what we had a lot of last year. Remember, he had good first quarters and then he got hurt in a couple of games before he got knocked out for the season. I do think that this is one of those games where like his ability to run is going to show up in a big way because the Dolphins don't have. I think they're, again, if Agba doesn't play, they could be done another pass rusher. This isn't a game where he has to throw the ball very much to have success. You know, he could take a few shots down the field. Like, he's not a top 5 quarterback for me, but he is a top 12 guy. I would start him ahead of Mahomes, for example. I'd start him ahead of the 2 guys that we talked about in Jacksonville and New England. That's not a big stretch.
How about Purdy?
I would start him ahead of Purdy. I think there's much more upside in his matchup than there is for Purdy. So it's
There's a lot more upside.
it's
Go ahead.
a lot more downside. Yes. But this is a game where, like, he could have 40 to 50 rushing yards and 2 total touchdowns and 180 passing yards and be right around 20 fantasy points.
So we've laid out the running back situations here. If Achane does play, would he be in your top 12?
I ranked him this morning. I don't know if Heath did not or not yet. So I had Mostert at 14. I just put Achane there, and I dropped Mostert down like 4 or 5 spots. So both are top 20 running backs for me. I mean, we got last time that this team played, when Achane was hurt early in the game against New England, Mostert had 18 carries and Jalen Wright had 15. So we're going to most likely get 30 plus carries for 30 plus touches for these 2 guys. Mostert had 2 catches in that game. I don't remember what the other guys combined for reception wise. Like, that's the game plan if you're Mike McDaniel. Run the ball, try and get a win, get to week 8, get to a back. It's pretty simple to me if I'm coaching the Dolphins.
I've got Achane closer to 20, Mostert closer to 30.
Okay. Are you worried about Jalen Wright, or are you just worried about their offense?
I'm just worried about their offense. Like, this is one of the lowest over-unders, and they're an underdog. Like, I know the Colts defense has been bad, but they also might score 1 touchdown as a team.
Tyreek Hill or Devon Achane?
Achane for me.
I've got Tyreek.
Tyreek Hill or Deebo Samuel?
Deebo.
Tyreek.
All right. Jonnu Smith, any interest there?
No.
All right, Josh Downs and Michael Pittman. Ooh. So Joe Flacco threw for 189 yards last week, and Josh Downs still had a huge game, 7 for 66 and a touchdown on 9 targets. Anthony Richardson can throw over 189 yards.
It's a different kind of 189, though.
I mean, he's only played 1 game with Richardson, and what did he have? 3 catches for 22 yards on.
They had a great relationship last year when Richardson was healthy.
That was his first game back from injury too. So, like Downs or Douglas.
Downs.
Douglas, assuming May is healthy, but they're very similar.
Downs or Waddle.
Downs.
Waddle or Pittman.
Pittman.
Waddle.
All right, you don't want to start Pittman or Waddle.
No.
I hope I don't have to.
Then let's move on. Cincinnati's at Cleveland. All right, Joe Burrow, 6th for Jamey, 7th for Heath. Does that sound right?
Yep.
Okay. Start Joe Burrow. Although it would be nice to see him have a good game on the road. Okay. Okay. All right. There we go. So we got a lot of question marks at running backs. You know, Jaguars, Patriots. I'm not even gonna go through the list. Is Chase Brown kind of ahead of most all of those? Oh, Heath's mic drop.
I caught it.
Mic drop, Heath. Is Chase Brown ahead of basically all of those guys?
Yes.
All right. It would be a shame if the roles went back to what they have been, but we're hoping this is the week that we're kind of hoping that Chase Brown has claimed the job, right?
How would they go back to that, though?
Right.
Well, for one thing, passing downs is probably, I'm guessing, is still going to be Zach Moss.
Agreed.
But yeah, carries, it should be Chase Brown. It just
they both fumbled at the end of the game last week. One went out of bounds. One was recovered by the other team. Chase Brown's the one that went out of bounds.
Yeah.
So I think there's a chance that like Chase Brown fumbles again, and now he's the fumbler. And there's going to be games with Chase Brown, like it's still a split, and Moss has the passing downs. So there's going to be games where Chase Brown doesn't score a touchdown, and it's not that great. But I wouldn't like. This is a game where they should probably run the ball 40 times because they're playing the terrible Browns.
Would you start? Here's a question in the chat: Chase Brown or Antonio Gibson if Ramondre's out? Brown or I'll ask Brown or James Conner against the Chargers.
Brown.
Chase Brown or T. Higgins flex.
Higgins.
Higgins.
All right, start Chase. You guys like Higgins? Like a lot?
How do you not at this point?
He's been good. He hasn't been great, but he's been good. Okay. And well, I don't know. I mean, do you think it's a tough matchup?
It's not an easy matchup, but I think the way that Burrow has been playing and the way that Higgins has been out targeting Jamar Chase, like it's hard to not say Higgins should be started across the board, whether it's, you're considering him a top 12 or top 20 guy. Like he's in that range for sure.
He has 6 more targets than Jamar Chase since returning 4 weeks ago. Starter sit Deshaun let's go to the Cleveland running backs here. How do you feel about Jamey?
I dropped Deshaun Watson in a super flex league for Russell Wilson.
Good for you. Good for you dropping quarterbacks in super flex leagues. Jamey, how do you feel about Nick Chubb this week?
Low end number 2 running back, probably better suited as a flex. It's a great matchup. You said it. They did get healthier last week, and it showed up against the Giants. Tracy did some things in the passing game that I don't think Nick Chubb will do. You don't know exactly how much they're going to use Chubb in his first game back, but at this point, if you're the Browns, you got to get a win. Stefanski, I don't think his job is in danger, but Nick Chubb is their best offensive player right now. So I'm going to guess he's going to get around 50, 60 total yards and score a touchdown.
Do you guys like Jerry Jeudy this week at all?
No.
I like him as much as I like Calvin Ridley.
I like him more than I like Calvin Ridley.
Agreed.
But you like Demaryius Douglas and Juju Smith-Schuster, all those guys. Do you like Josh Downs or Jerry Jeudy?
Downs.
Jalen Waddle or Jerry Jeudy?
Waddle.
Waddle.
All right. You got there's a possibility that Jerry Jeudy can't be the most added player because he's already, I think, 70% added. But he comes out and he gets, 12 PPR fantasy points or something like that. We're going to be telling people to roster him.
So he was getting 12 PPR fantasy points at the start of the season. It was like 11 at the start of the season. Again, you got 8.8 targets to replace in this offense. And so he's not a bad, I shouldn't, completely dismiss him. So I apologize. He's not a bad receiver to put on the end of your bench to see what happens. He's not a bad desperation flex in a 3 receiver league where you start 4, you can use one as flex. But you shouldn't go, oh my God, look what just happened. They just got rid of, if you're comparing the 2 situations, for example, I would even rather have Jacoby Myers than Jerry Jeudy right now.
Okay, but what about Michael Wilson, who's got some appeal, right? Michael Wilson or Jerry Jeudy?
To roster or to start this week?
To start this week.
I would rather start Wilson if Harrison is out.
All right. Are we done with this game? Anything else? The tight ends? We're not. Oh, Njoku. Yeah. How do we feel about Njoku?
So he's interesting. He's a starter. He's coming off a game with 7 targets, which was a season high for him. We know he's been banged up throughout the course of the season. The matchup is interesting. They haven't been bad against tight ends except for the Ravens guys that scored touchdowns 2 games ago. But this is now 2 games in without Dax Hill. So we'll see how that impacts this defense. So I think Njoku is probably going to see a lot of volume. Wouldn't surprise me if he has 10 plus targets. That should matter.
So who was the guy we talked about earlier that we kind of liked compared to Mark Andrews? Oh, Hunter Henry. Hunter Henry or Njoku?
Njoku.
Right now I have them back to back. I would start Njoku ahead of Henry simply because I don't know if I want to carry 2 tight ends. So if I have Njoku, I just stick with him.
And which DST?
I would start Njoku over Kincaid this week.
Which DST do you prefer? Well, that's interesting. Bengals, yeah. Bengals are actually rostered in fewer leagues than the Browns. All right, we're going to take one last break. I think we have 3 games left, so we'll get to them, starting with the Jets and the Steelers after this on FFT.
Saturdays at 3:30, it's big time. Defending national champion Michigan heads to Champaign to take on longtime rival Illinois in a big-time 3:30 matchup.
It's big time.
Saturday on CBS and streaming on Paramount+.
Starter sit Aaron Rodgers. Jets are at Pittsburgh Sunday night. Heath.
He is the definition of a borderline QB1. I think I've got him 13th maybe right now, or that's where he's going to be. Wouldn't be surprised at all if he comes out and throws 2 touchdown passes to Devontae Adams, throws for 250 yards, scores 20 fantasy points. Sounds about right.
Not so much for Jamey unless you changed it, but you have him 18th.
Pittsburgh's a really good defense, and this offensive line is still a little bit shaky. He does have 4 interceptions and 4 touchdowns in his last 2 games. And let's face it, while Adams is certainly a significant upgrade, it's not like Allen Lazard has not been producing for him. And it's not like Garrett Wilson's not been getting 33 targets in his last 2 games. I don't see how his production dramatically changes. It should be better. It should be better quality of throws to a receiver that's going to be more involved. It took him a 58-yard Hail Mary to get the 2 touchdowns last week against Buffalo. Like, this is a little bit of a tougher opponent. You mentioned the over/under earlier, Heath, in the Dolphins Colts game. This is also going to be a pretty low scoring affair based on what Vegas is telling us. So he's not a slam dunk must start for me. No,
it is, well, certainly not a slam dunk must start. It is like, this may be the most difficult matchup that he's faced, but also it's hard to take his stats from this year and then say he's playing a difficult matchup, because that's pretty much all he's seen this season. Like, it's been an awful schedule. 49ers, the Titans did have one easy game against the Patriots, the Broncos, the Bills. Like, it's just good pass defense after good pass defense after good pass defense.
And he had a great game against Patriots, 25 fantasy points. Pittsburgh, 5th best against quarterbacks so far. Start Breece Hall. So, Heath, you just seem really pumped for Davante Adams this week.
I mean, Jamey always talks about the show off the new toy game. And this is the show off your best friend is back game.
in prime time.
In prime time. Like, Aaron Rodgers wants to, like, look what a good GM I am. I went and got this player who's my friend, and now he's going to score all the touchdowns. I think of Davante Adams like 5th or 6th. I wouldn't rank him that high rest of season, but I do think in his first game with Rodgers, when it's so much different than most veteran wide receivers we have changing teams, we know that he knows the entire playbook. We know that he knows exactly what the quarterback wants him to do. Like, I think he's actually living in Rodgers' house right now.
Yeah. Okay.
Remember the last time that happened with a receiver who was added to another team?
No.
Was it Mahomes?
Kadarius Toney and Mahomes or something?
I'll give you a clue. It does relate to the Jets in some fashion. How he exited his career.
Antonio Brown and Brady.
How about that? Okay, so how would you start? You're going to start Davante Adams.
See ya.
Would you start Garrett Wilson or Tyreek Hill?
Tyreek.
Garrett Wilson or Brian Robinson Jr. if he plays?
Robinson.
Garrett Wilson or Najee Harris?
Wilson.
Wilson in full PPR, Najee everywhere else.
All right, let me just double check. Wilson in PPR is 22nd for Heath, 21st for Jamey, 18th for Dave. Adams is 20th for Jamey, 14th for Dave, and 4th for Heath. All right. As a Davante Adams manager, Heath, I am fired up for your rankings. I love them. Sit Tyler Conklin, sit the Steelers quarterbacks. Yeah, how do we feel about Najee Harris coming off his best game of the season? And the Jets, they had been solid, I guess, until last week, and they were awful last week. But how are we feeling?
One of the other things Robert Turbin, our running back expert, said was that that Russell Wilson, and we don't know for sure, but Russell Wilson starting would be better for the running backs because it's going to open up more pass catching opportunities for them. This Jets defense has been kind of up and down. Like, they got ran on early in the year as well. I'm not really fearing them. It's not as good a matchup, obviously, as the Raiders was, but I'm starting Najee Harris, top 20 running back.
He's just outside the top 24 for me, but that's a lot of moving parts, obviously, with some of these injury situations. So I feel more comfortable with him as a flex. I don't like that he's got a rib injury. I don't like that's also Jalen Warren's second game back, so shake off the rust. The last game from the knee injury. How much more will he be involved? He was awesome last week, but is that the Najee Harris that we're getting, or is it just the Raiders?
Yeah. At this point, I'm comfortable saying that it was not, like, it's 4 years now where he averages 3.9 yards per carry basically every year. It was a regression of the mean. Going into last week, he was averaging 3.3 yards per carry. Now he's averaging 3.9 yards per carry. He just had to get back to normal Najee Harris. Okay, Pittsburgh wide receivers is really just George Pickens. Pickens or Wilson?
Wilson.
Pickens. I'm assuming Wilson's starting. Russell.
Okay. And Jamey's got Pickens like 28th, and you've got him about 17th or so, Heath.
Sounds right.
So,
I am optimistic. I just don't want to start him this week.
Okay, so
that will change if all the Jets are banged up defensively. I will move them up a few spots.
I like to. One of the things I like to do is kind of a measuring stick is have any good wide receivers struggled against this team. The 49ers wide receivers were bad, except Debo had a rushing touchdown. Ayuk did drop a touchdown, but even if he had caught it, it wouldn't have been that good of a game. Justin Jefferson was okay. He had 6 for 92 on 14 targets, but if you recall, he drew a lot of penalties in that game and was consistently getting open. And that's pretty much it. They haven't really shut down a good, I can't put Pickens in this category. Like he's not Brandon Ayuk, but they haven't shut down a good outside receiver yet, except Ayuk in week 1 coming off no training camp. Starter sit Pat Freiermuth.
Sit.
I'd like to sit him. He's in that big glob of somewhere between 12 and 18.
Which DST do you prefer?
The Jets right now.
Yep.
Ravens are at the Buccaneers. Bonanza. Okay. No running back has rushed for more than 46 yards against the Ravens, but the only one with more than 12 carries is Isaiah Pacheco, but 15 carries, 45 yards, and a touchdown. So
I don't want to start a Bucs running back. I don't have confidence that any of them are going to have more than 12 carries in this game.
If Rachaad White's out, does Irving crack the top 24?
No.
Damn it. I'd love to start him, but no, you just can't.
And I think I don't have Tucker ranked over Irving, but I think they're 30 and 32 or 30 and 33. But I do think, as far as what Robert said, that this is a game that would seem to favor Tucker because they favor him more on passing downs right now. And I don't think either one of them is going to have a lot of success running the ball against the Ravens, but one of them might catch 3 passes for 40 yards.
Okay. We love Baker this week, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Must start.
Okay. I think you said you had Jamey does not, but I think Heath, you said you have him over Josh Allen, right?
Yes.
I have no problem with that.
Zay Flowers, I don't really know what to make of those 2 games where, it was 18 pass attempts, 15 pass attempts. He had 2 terrible games. Other than that, Zay Flowers is a must start. He's in your top 12, top 10 in PPR. And is it, you all right?
Maybe not. Probably not.
Okay. If you have to go, feel free.
There was a comment in chat about Mike Evans to the IR. I know he saw the same thing.
Mike Evans to the IR.
I'm sure just somebody trolling us.
I think it's somebody trolling us.
Oh, come on, John Cougar.
Yeah.
The other John Cougar will be very disappointed in you in the chat there. Okay, so anyway, any tough calls in this game? If we don't want to start the Bucs running backs, and we're not going to start Justice Hill, any tough calls in this game?
Tough calls, the tight ends for the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah, what are we thinking about them?
I mean, likely has just been touchdown dependent. He's gotten, since week 1, 27 yards or less in every game. He's gotten 4 targets or less in every game. It's just a matter of will he score this week against a Bucs defense that hasn't allowed a tight end to score a touchdown? So the answer is probably no. So do you trust Mark Andrews? And that's the same question we've been asking since week 1. I would guess the answer should be no. But again, his last 2 games, he's been better. Still not a lot of targets that you say, okay, he's back to being Mark Andrews. So borderline starter at best.
I think they rank like 11 and 13 for me at tight end, which is probably cowardly, but let's see. Otten's like 18.
The Buccaneers, by the way, they do give up the 5th most receiving yards per game to tight ends. So they are giving it like Pitts had.
How many of that is with Winfield and without Winfield?
That's a good question. But Pitts, 88 yards. Morrow, 54 yards. Juwan Johnson, 48 yards. Goddard, 62 yards. So they've been struggling a bit. Winfield played last week, right?
He did.
All right. And then, any interest in Rashad Bateman?
He's in that Calvin Ridley range.
I would start him over Calvin Ridley.
He's a touchdown or bust fantasy receiver.
Chargers are at the Cardinals. Last game here. Last week, the Chargers ran 75 plays.
Just do them all at this point and just bleed into tomorrow.
Yeah, well,
is it not tomorrow already?
I could save this for you. Should I save this for tomorrow?
No,
I could save it for tomorrow.
This is an easy game. Start Dobbins, start Connor if he plays. Don't start Herbert. Kyler's the tough question.
Kyler's it.
And Ladd, I guess Ladd's a tough choice as a wide receiver 3.
I don't think Connor's a slam dunk, by the way.
What do you mean, to play or to start?
To start. It's hard to sit him, clearly, but Why did he only play 16 snaps last week? Ankle, game script, what's happening? I think he's hurt.
Lad McConkey, by the way, he is 6 to 8 targets in 4 or 5 games. Has 2 touchdowns, has a 26.4% target share, 9.4 yard ADOT, which is pretty high for a guy in the slot most of the time. Tied for the team lead in red zone and end zone targets, leads the team in green zone targets, has played 72%, 77%, and 63% of the snaps in his last 3 games, but he got hurt last week. There's some encouraging stuff with McConkey. They just don't throw enough. So yeah, this is an easy game. But what about Michael Wilson and Greg Dortch, assuming Harrison is out?
I don't know how you can trust Dortch at this point. He just has not done anything since week 1 of significance. And just based on how I think they'll use him. Plus, you have Zay Jones coming back. That shouldn't really impact him too much. But it's McBride really is the only safe one for the Cardinals of their pass catchers and probably of all of their players, at least for me. I think in terms of Michael Wilson, you're hoping that he scores. He should see an uptick in targets if Harrison doesn't play. There's just been a bad passing attack for the last few weeks. And Kyler Murray right now is just not playing well.
Who are some players you'd start over Kyler Murray?
I would start Drake May if he's healthy. I would start Trevor Lawrence. I would start Brock Purdy, Jared Goff, Kirk Cousins. Need I continue?
No, that's fine. Not Daniel Jones.
Not Daniel Jones.
I would not start Daniel Jones. And there's a few of the other names I think Jamey said that I don't have over Kyler, but definitely Darnold, Geno, Purdy, Lawrence, Rodgers.
Okay. And that is it, I think, for this game. Chargers DST. Jamey has him 3rd, Dave 5th, Heath 11th. So you could go to the Chargers.
They have scored 15 or 16 points or less in 3 of their last 4 games, the Cardinals have. And the Chargers have not allowed a team to go over 20 points.
And the last thing I'll say is please check all your leagues for Trey Benson. He's 35% rostered. This is a guy that you want to put on your bench if you can. That is Heath and Jamey. I am Adam. We will talk to you next time. We'll recap the Thursday night game and preview 6 games tomorrow, I believe. And we'll be back then on Fantasy Football Today.